It's going to be tricky here to make the transition from transhumanism to some surveys about attitudes in Sweden. But I think that they have relevance for other places, and it's about the undercurrents that change politics, and it's connected to virtues and vices. And I work with Thomas Persson in this project called the Open Society Project. And I rewrote the title a little bit, the space for conservatisms, because this thing which I'm coming to the end here, I'm very uncertain about. So we start with going back in time, and we first a very, very quick expose over virtues and vices. And we have an agrarian society, and we couldn't find any real farmers, so I took two Swedish actors here who pose as they pretend Scandinavian actors who pretend to be farmers, but the guy to the left actually looks exactly like my grandfather, who was an actual farmer. On my mother's side, it was the bourgeoisie, and that's sort of explaining my mental health conditions. But that's a mix. So the old society, which means that you should never be a burden to society or other people, a very, very strong virtue. And then we have the engineering ideal, which comes in Sweden and becomes very, very strong, in particular in Sweden. People have written about this. Katarina Barling and Cecilia Garme has written an excellent book about this particular ideal, which I recommend you to strongly to read. So that comes into the picture here. And okay, you can be successful, but don't ever show off. This comes into the Swedish sentiments as well. Then things change very quickly. Hjalmar Branting, social democracy, universal suffrage, and I'm sorry that this is still under the headline vices, because I'm for the universal suffrage, so I think that is a good thing, but things change. World wars, economic growth, innovation in Sweden shapes this country to a large extent, and the ideals. Things were fairly, it was possible to understand Sweden with the left-right scale like this for a long time. Here on the left side, support the weak in society, support the state. To the right, defend freedom, pull your own weight, still a strong virtue. Don't be a burden to others. Gör rätt för dig. That's a very, very strong virtue here. And a vice if you don't live up to it. But then, you fast forward about 100 years, you have so many more things to keep track of. This is difficult because you don't know how to do the right thing so easily anymore, right? But there's a lot of things here which we do, which has sort of been added to the list of things we do. We have equality, right to abortion, we are a moral superpower. I'm talking about as we see ourselves and what kind of virtues that are displayed in public discourses of various kinds. We're not nationalists, absolutely not like Norwegians, etc. And we trust other people. You should at least say you do. We don't know if Swedes actually do that, but we should say it. Trust the state. Gold plating, meaning that if the EU tells us to do something, we should do it even better, even though nobody tells us to. We're not religious. Liberal values relating to identities. Yes, okay to show off. Sometimes, yes, but really don't do that. Peace-loving. We create peace wherever we go. We give aid. We create development. We're not racist and not xenophobic. Family is not that important, and we're very democratic, at least when the right party wins the elections. And there is a consensus culture. These are some things that we have measured. Some things I'm just speculating about, but that's okay. In any case, Sweden has changed rapidly. Violent crimes, you all know about that. Liberalization, new public management, these things are very important for how values change over time. And then immigration is very, very important here. We have in 2022, it was either 20, 26, or almost 33% that have a foreign background in Sweden, depending on how you count. And this is if you're born outside, or have two parents who were born outside Sweden, or if you have one parent were born yourself outside. So after 2 generations, you don't have foreign background. So in places in outside Göteborg, Gothenburg or Malmö, you have citizens who don't speak very much Swedish at all, and they're third-generation immigrants. if you look at it like that, there are things that comes with this, and this is what we have to think about to understand the coming things that will change in the space for politics. So here I'm using a very good report, a very interesting report called Integration Young People, which compares those with a foreign background with those who does not have that, and then the generation report from 2024. The latter one looks at attitudes of younger people in general. Younger people identify as someone who enjoys life. They focus on health a lot today, but they don't feel very well. They actually have a lot of psychological health problems, and they're in poor physical shape, many of them as well. And they think that politicians are not good at solving problems, and they do not trust or have faith in democracy so much anymore. This is an undercurrent that we need to understand. Then we go to the study on foreign background, compare with those with a Swedish background. There are good news. Structural integration works fairly well in Sweden. Those who have an immigrant background, after a few years, have about the same income or education, etc., as those who do not have foreign background. That's very good news. There is adaptation in terms of health and how long you live, things like that. And this is great news. Those with a foreign background looks at the future in a very positive way. So these are things that we should remember. Now we come to the differences. The political interest among those with a foreign background is slightly lower, but it's not that much lower, but they don't vote so much, but they don't have a party which represents them so much, they may feel. Social integration is not working well. If you have an immigrant background, you marry, you socialize with those who look like you, basically. Same things for Swedes, of course. And then, this is the most important part, I think, the cultural integration part. Because when you look at religiosity, views on the family, sexuality, equality, violence, abortion, and homosexuality in particular, you find that those who have a Swedish background are not very religious. Family is not that important. They have a very liberal view on sexuality. They very strongly believe in equality. And they're very strongly against violence in any situation. They protect abortion rights and are for rights for homosexuals, of course. And if you look at those who have a foreign background, it is the opposite. This is a huge difference. You can see that the cultural distance between those with a Swedish background and those who do not have a Swedish background, that's the largest difference that you can find. And this is among the young people. So this is what will be something that comes into politics, of course, when they get to vote. So all these things that I mentioned here, all these things in red, connect to those virtues, vices, whatever you want to call them, these values that are at stake here. This is where we will see political change in the very near future. It has actually already started to change the party space in Sweden, as we know. And this is when I come to why the left may not be so happy about the future, okay? In Järvafältet, Rosengård, Social Democrats have about 75% support of the population. But those with immigrant background do not automatically turn left. Immigrants have for example, have small businesses and are the most exposed to the wave of violence. So they will look for other alternatives. And many immigrants hold very conservative values. Sweden Democrats is the second most popular party among first-generation immigrants today. This is a very strong trend, and it will probably be even more so in the future. This is very important to remember if you want to look into the crystal ball here, I think. Why the right might not be so happy about the future? Well, it depends on how it goes with the integration question I mentioned in the beginning here. If integration works, then there is no big challenge to the right. Things can be sort of incorporated and managed within the ideology of the right. But if integration does not work, which we have indicators that it's not, because the social integration I mentioned before is working in the way that people are not mixing across the groups so much as we would have hoped to. They're behaving like Swedes who traveled to America 200 years ago. They set up their own communities and stuck to their own values for a very long time. One situation can lead to support for liberal conservatism. It can challenge or spin off in versions of national conservatism. You can have religious conservatism or even authoritarian conservatism in the possible outcomes that comes from this. And religious conservatism is one thing here when, for example, abortion rights will be challenged. So, that's what we are heading towards. That's where we are, and that's where we're heading towards. And I'll take the final minute here to just say 2 words about a coming research project that connects to the dynamics which I have just told you about. Because in the current political debate, in the public current political debate in Sweden, and in political science, which is my field, there is a strong focus today on populism. And that many of the things that I talked about here are the result of populist forces. And in the upcoming project that I'm hoping to pursue is to challenge this, because I think there are good reasons to see that populism never was the cause of many of the things, the clashes that we see today. It is a symptom. And if we go back and look at many other places to see what has been happening for a long time, then we can see that there are undercurrents which we need to think about. And they're not taking us to places where we're supposed to be going. You may have seen in The Economist quite recently a long article about the old Engelhardt Pipanoris map on where different countries are positioned in a matrix where Sweden is in the upper right corner. As you know, we are individualistic and we don't rely on religion and things like that. And everybody was supposed to become like Sweden when they became wealthier. And the world is a much better place today. We have more literacy. I mean, in many ways, of course, we're destroying the planet, of course, but that's another thing. But we have more literacy, we have more gender equality, we have fewer women dying when they give birth. All kinds of things are much better, but it's not taking them to the Swedish upper right corner. They're going somewhere else with their own values. They're not. We want them to become Sweden, but they're not. They're sticking with their own cultures for some reason. So, main underlying causes here to the situation we're in now, where we say that populism is pushing forward as a driving primary force, I would say we have to understand China. So we have the influence on global politics. Refugee waves are very important to understand here too. The pandemic and conflicts in various parts of the world. These things are stronger undercurrents for what changes, what is the virtues and vices today, not only in Sweden. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, that's something else.
Sten, you say that these young immigrants are becoming or are conservative. Do they have an ideology of conservatism, or are they just sort of indifferent, dissatisfied, clinging to their old ways of living?
Well, I'm not sure if it's an ideology, but it is a culture. It is a culture which contains things which are the diametrically opposed values of what Sweden has tried to emphasize for a long time. And that's a thing which we saw coming, and we did not think about how to handle that for a very long time. Now it's what do you call it, the party space in Sweden. And,
Is it one culture?
No. Of course not. But they have, if you look at values relating to the families, they are similar in many ways, or abortion or something like that, or just views on homosexuality. Then you find similarities, but they are different cultures, absolutely.
But if the right leader comes along, would it be possible to form a great party of conservative immigrants?
Well, this is what Yüksel is trying to do, of course, with his new party. But it still hasn't. It's called Nuance, and it's not really a good description of what the party is about in all aspects that you can imagine. But it's what has been tried already, and in some parts of Sweden, it is a growing force. It's impossible to say where it will go.
But will the big change be that they become a political force, or rather the danger of them being an apolitical part of society?
That's a good question. I need to think about that.
Because we have so many areas where they feel that they are outside the general society, utanförskapsområden as we call it.
Yeah, but that's the thing which we actually done some research on. And these exposed areas, as they're called, they contain a lot of integration too. Take, for example, the criminal networks. In Sweden today, about 60,000 people belong to criminal or are connected to criminal networks. 60,000, that's quite high. But that's 99.6%. So it's far from. I mean, most people who come here as immigrants, they flee from the kind of conservatism that I'm speaking about. But there is, when they come here, they are easily captured in clan societies simply because most people move to places where, just like the Swedes did, look like themselves, right? And in those places, unfortunately, there are strong forces that are extremely conservative that work together with the criminal networks. So they sort of do their best to turn, to move things backwards, I would say.
That was interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.